It is a great honor for me to have the opportunity to welcome you to our 60th Annual Supreme Court Luncheon. As you see, we are starting on time in order that we will absolutely terminate by 1:30. We promise. Some of you may note that we're not in the hotel where we usually hold this event. We're not in the hotel where we held this event for many, many years. And the reason is because of the core values of our institution, which include human rights and equal protection of the law. And so we decided to move the event so that, thank you, so that our guests and you and we would all be very comfortable. Please allow me to introduce our special guests who are here today on the podium right now. Reading from my right, your left, Mrs. Susan Prager, Westberg Prager, Dean of the Southwestern University School of Law. Scott Altman, Vice Dean, USC School of Law. Autumn Rhonda, Barristers President, Beverly Hills Bar Association. Where is she? Somewhere Autumn's out there. Bonita Moore, who's president of our foundation. Mark Steinberg, the best CEO in the nation. I'm next in order, Diane Cartman. Ann Carlson, Vice Dean, UCLA School of Law. Mrs. Danelle Reese-Taka, Dean Pepperdine, long drive there. Professor Ellen April, former Associate Dean, Loyola School of Law. The famous Joyce Kennard. We are so fortunate to have her here, you have no idea. Mr. Frederick Nichols, longtime supporter of Beverly Hills Bar, and Justice Tani Kantil Sakayui. Got it. Okay, also I'd like to introduce you to Beverly Hills Bar's Executive Committee and the President-elect, Linda, will you stand up, Linda? Linda Spiegel. Our first Vice President, Howard Fredman. Our second Vice President, Howard Fisher. Our Secretary-Treasurer, Richard Kaplan. And Autumn again gets introduced. Okay. And the Barrister-elect Dorian Ubali. Dorian, where are you? Dorian. And our immediate Vice President, John Rubner. Now I want to point out some of our past presidents that are here. Christopher Bradford, please stand up. Dixon Dern. Nancy Nuffler. Dan McIntosh. Cindy Pasternak, who is here attending with the former LA County Bar President, Dave Pasternak, good friend of our bar. Ken Petroulis, who's here with his wife, Gail. Mark Poster. Stephen Rocher. John Rubner. Mark Salas. Mark Steinberg. And Michael White. Oh, I forgot. Please turn off your mobile device. Please turn off your mobile device. Okay, in a couple of minutes, our Chief Justice will introduce her colleagues on the California Supreme Court. At this point in time, it is my pleasure and honor, on behalf of the Beverly Hills Bar Association, to welcome currently sitting judicial officers to our luncheon this year. I would appreciate if the judges of the U.S. District Court, the U.S. Court of Appeals, and other federal judicial officers who are in attendance would please stand and allow us to recognize you. I would now appreciate it if the justices of the California Courts of Appeal, judges of the Superior Courts, and other state judicial officers would stand and allow us to recognize you also. We also have some special guests who are able to attend today. Ruth Esp, who's president of the Santa Monica Bar Association. Mike Fear, city attorney. Mike just did an amazing program for us on Law Day. James Heidick. Jim, can you stand up? Jim is the former president of the State Bar of California, and I was his campaign manager, I might add. Alan Rothenberg. Alan, could you please stand? Another former president of the State Bar of California. Howard Miller, former president of the State Bar of California, and an order of the distinguished attorneys. Steve Webb, former mayor of Beverly Hills. I also want to thank our benefit providers, the Elkins Jones Insurance Agency, always very supportive of our association, LexisNexis, and Matloff Life, Health, and Disability. Most importantly, okay, we have a remarkable staff. I know you hear us say this all the time, but they just put together these events so we show up and look good. But our staff who are wandering throughout the room are the most remarkable assemblage of people I've ever seen, and of course we can thank Mark for that. Okay, let me now introduce you to Councilman Dr. Willie Bryan, who is here with us today. He is the former Chief of Staff of Cedars-Sinai Hospital and currently the Executive Vice Chairman of the Department of Surgery and Chairman of the Department of Orthopedics. He is also the grandson of the late, great Earl Warren, and who was the governor of the state of California and Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Bryan here.
Thank you very much, Diane. It's always an honor to join the California's Chief Justice and the distinguished justices of the California Supreme Court, as well as the members of the Beverly Hills Bar Association, the Law Guild, the Beverly Hills Bar Foundation, and the deans of our local law schools. On behalf of all of my colleagues on the City Council in Beverly Hills, I'd like to welcome you all to Beverly Hills and the 60th Annual Supreme Court Luncheon. This is the first year in my memory that the Supreme Court Luncheon has not been held at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And as you know, the Beverly Hills Hotel is owned by the Sultan of Brunei and the Brunei government. The Beverly Hills City Council made a decision a few months ago to pass a resolution condemning the governments of Brunei's inhumane new laws and punishments. The Beverly Hills Bar Association and many other groups have chosen to patronize other hotels to express their own condemnation and concerns of Brunei's laws. We don't know at this time whether our actions will have any impact on the horrible realities that the Brunei citizens face every day. However, as citizens and as lawyers, it's important to make the case, if you will, that some laws are not to be tolerated, no matter how far away or removed from our own lives. These brutal and medieval punishments of torture for acts that should be not considered crimes are both degrading and inhumane, and in my opinion have no place in the 21st century. My two sons are brand new lawyers, and so I believe that this is an important message to share with them. And as you heard, my grandfather, Chief Justice Earl Warren, served on the Supreme Court in the 1950s and 60s when many landmark civil rights cases were settled, creating justice and equal protection in our own country. I want to thank the Beverly Hills Bar Association for their wisdom and their idealism and the message they send to young lawyers today. I congratulate the law students on their academic success and on their commitment to justice, and I hope that your law career, wherever it takes you, will include public service. Attorneys have a special obligation to serve their community. More than any other profession, you have the knowledge and skills to help those in our society who have neither. The Beverly Hills Bar Association is an outstanding example of lawyers dedicated to giving back. They show incredible commitment to Beverly Hills and the West Side by providing legal services, outreach programs, scholarships, and the Public Counsel Law Center. We in Beverly Hills are truly appreciative of your services that you provide to our seniors and our residents. And again, on behalf of the City Council, congratulations on your 60th event and we welcome you again to the City of Beverly Hills. Thank you.
Thank you for articulating ideas that we strongly believe in, which again are our core values. We did study this before we made this change, and we just wouldn't have been comfortable having the event at the Beverly Hills Hotel at this time. And just so you'll know, the Sharia law was enacted on April 22nd, so it's not an issue of the Sultan owning the hotel for a long period of time. It was the enactment of these harsh penalties that caused us to do this. Now, I'm very pleased to have the honor to introduce, thank you again, pleased to have the honor to introduce Bar Foundation President Benita Moore, who is the principal at Bird, Marnella, Boxer, Wilpert, Neeson, Droops, Lickenberg, and Rowe in Century City, where she represents clients in civil litigation involving complex business disputes, employment class actions, intellectual property, and professional liability matters.
On behalf of the foundation, welcome everyone. I'd first like to introduce our past foundation presidents. You can hold your applause till the end. If you're here, please rise. Paul Basile, Don Colson, Ken Petroulis, Uzi Renan, and Geraldine Weil. Next, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our scholarship donors. This year, the following firms are scholarship donors, which means that their names are inscribed on each of the scholarship certificates being given today. The scholarship donors are Bird Morella, Boxer Wolpert, Nessum Drooks, Linsenberg and Rowe, Girardi Keys, Chernoff Bidart, Echeverria Bentley LLP, and the USC School of Law, Beverly Hills Bar Association Institute on Entertainment Law and Business. The following firms are champions of justice donors: Fox Entertainment Group, Gibson Dunn and Crutcher LLP, Granis Martin Stein and Richland LLP, Manat Phelps and Phillips LLP, Oldman Cooley Salas Bernberg and Coleman LLP, and Valencia Rose PLC. Our rule of law writing competition donor is Goodson Wachtel and Petroulis APC. Thank you so very much to our scholarship donors. We are proud of our many previous scholarship recipients who have achieved successful careers while continuing to contribute to the community. One such recipient is with us today. In 2006, Abier Sek of Loyola Law School received a Bar Foundation scholarship. She worked hard in law school and went on to study abroad, publish legal articles, make numerous presentations at legal conventions, and volunteer in the community, for which volunteer activities she's received honors. Since 2008, she's been a senior associate and trial lawyer at the Cochran firm. Please welcome Abiri Sek.
Thank you to the Beverly Hills Bar Association for inviting me here today. It is an honor to be able to address a group of such accomplished individuals and be among such distinguished guests. The Beverly Hills Bar Association and its charitable foundation hold a special place in my heart. Not too long ago, I too was a law student. I had just moved here from Seattle, Washington, after spending 5 very chilly winters in Boston, Massachusetts. I only knew a handful of people in this massive city, and I would commute each day from Inglewood, California by bus to my school in downtown Los Angeles. I learned about the scholarship through a professor of mine. I applied, and thankfully, I was a recipient. The scholarship was significant enough, I was able to not only purchase my books and cover my transportation costs, but I was able to rent a unit closer to campus. But the scholarship does more than just buy books. It generates more giving, and in my case, it inspired deeper community involvement. The year I was awarded a scholarship, the keynote speaker was famed defense attorney Thomas Mesereau. He's most notably known for his defending Michael Jackson and his mane of white hair. After the scholarship luncheon, he approached me and he asked if I would be interested in volunteering with his free legal clinic in South Central Los Angeles. I was thrilled, and of course I said yes. I spent, despite my rigorous schedule, every Saturday at that free legal clinic, and I continue to do so to this day. In addition to that, having seen how a little financial assistance can go a very long way, I was inspired to do what my grandparents' pastors encouraged the congregation to do, which is pay it forward. So my first year of practice, I joined the scholarship committee of the Langston Bar Association, which is the largest and oldest African American bar association in the nation. That first year, we awarded $10,000 in scholarships. Now, as the present chair of that scholarship committee, last year, we awarded in excess of $57,000. As you can see, the impact of these scholarships are far-reaching. I thank the Beverly Hills Bar Association and its charitable foundation for continuing this tradition of giving, and I hope that each of you will be inspired to do the same. Thank you.
On behalf of the Beverly Hills Bar Foundation, it is now my pleasure and delight to announce and introduce the 2014 Law School Scholarship recipients. I wish to thank the Scholarship Committee Chair, Robert Aronoff, and his committee, Linda Blank, Gillian Brown, Don Colson, Doran Iqbali, Roshni Gandhi, Jan Goldstein, Joseph Heckmat, Jill Levin, Mark Poster, Darren Schlechter, Khaldun Shobaki, Steve Webb, Steve Young, and me. The Rule of Law Committee and its chair, Ken Petroulis, and committee members Mark Poster, Steve Rauscher, and Steve Young, and of course our Supreme Court Luncheon Donor Committee, co-chaired by Jerry Weil and Don Colson, and members Robert Aronoff, Honorable Aviva Bob, Hani Haddad, Mark Poster, Randall Rich, and Bruce Sires for all their dedicated service and hard work. The scholarship certificates. The scholarship certificates will be presented to the recipients by Scholarship Committee Chair Robert Aronoff. The 2014 Beverly Hills Bar Foundation scholarship recipients are Nicole Bannister of Pepperdine University Law School. We can hold our applause to the end. Stephanie Brown, Pepperdine University School of Law. Nadine Dorscht, USC Gould School of Law. Karina Godoy, Southwestern Law School. Ryan Gray, Loyola Law School. Jesse Martin, UCLA School of Law. And Lizette Reynoso, UCLA School of Law. The class of 2014 BHBF scholarship recipients were nominated by our local law school deans because they had financial need, but more importantly, a demonstrated commitment to community service. Our scholarship committee interviewed the most outstanding of the nominated students. All of those interviewed have done extraordinary community service work and were deserving and could have benefited from a scholarship from the Beverly Hills Bar Foundation. But our limited funds dictated that we narrow the field to those we honor today. And now I'm delighted to have Jerry Weil, the co-chair of our Scholarship Donor Committee and past Bar Foundation president, tell you a little bit about each of these students, what makes them special, and why we not just want to support them, but need to support and encourage their continued community service work. She will also announce the winners of our annual Rule of Law competition. Jerry?
Thank you, Bonnie. Next time you are asked why it is important to support the Beverly Hills Bar Foundation, please think of these wonderful community service work that these students do for us. 5 years ago, we inaugurated a writing competition on the topic of the rule of law that is funded by Kenneth Petroulis. We are delighted that so many worthwhile notes and articles were submitted. Tommy Huynh receives an honorable mention for his entry, U.S. Rule of Law Promotion Efforts in Vietnam, Judicial Independence. Tommy is a JD candidate, class of 2015 at UCLA Law School, and he received his BA with distinction in economics from the University of California, Berkeley. The grand prize winner of the 5th annual Rule of Law writing competition is Jordana Kleinow for her submission entitled Civil Unrest Turns Deadly, Ukrainian Protesters Seeking Restoration of Rule of Law. Jordana, a third-year law student, was awarded 100% merit-based tuition scholarship to Southwestern and plans to graduate with a JD in December. Prior to law school, she graduated summa cum laude from the American Jewish University with a BA in Business Administration. Jordana is interested in pursuing a legal career in bankruptcy, tax, or international law. These submissions are posted on the foundation website. The presentation will also be made at her table by Robert Aronoff. I've been asked by the Beverly Hills Bar Association Board of Governors to inform each of these law students that they will also receive a complimentary BHBA membership for the year. Here are the bios of our scholarship recipients. Nicole Bannister, Pepperdine University School of Law. Nicole graduated magna cum laude from Taylor University with a BA in Political Science and International Studies. A second-year law student, she combines law studies with student community service, including Advocates for Public Interest Law and the International Justice Mission. Through the Pepperdine Global Justice Program, Nicole interned in Uganda at the High Court of Ugandan Judiciary, helping institute plea bargain. She represents indigent and homeless clients through the Pepperdine Legal Aid Clinic and Union Rescue Mission. Stephanie Brown, Pepperdine University School of Law. Second-year law student, Stephanie Brown, chose Pepperdine because of its international law and alternative dispute resolution programs. She graduated cum laude from the University of Alabama. Currently, she is a member of Advocates for Public Interest Law and the International Justice Mission. Stephanie grew up going on missions with their parents and last summer worked as a legal intern in Rwanda, helping represent victims of sexual assault. She hopes to ultimately be involved with NGOs on an international level. Nadine Dorscht, USC Gould School of Law. Nadine came to the United States from Russia with her parents when she was a child. Nadine graduated from UCLA with a Bachelor of Arts, was on the Dean's Honor List for several years, and was Phi Beta Kappa. She then attended a Stanford University Summer Institute before starting law school. She is currently a second-year law student whose experience includes a judicial externship with the U.S. District Court, Central District of California, and law clerk positions at Betzedek Legal Services. Karina Godoy, Southwestern Law School. Karina plans to work with underprivileged children and in the area of employment. As a third-year law student at Southwestern Law School in her part-time program, she works as a research assistant at the Immigration Legal Clinic and Children's Rights Clinic, and she was on the Dean's List last year. As a child of Mexican immigrants, Karina is the first of her family to attend college and law school. She graduated magna cum laude with a BA in History and Political Science at USC. Before law school, she focused on public service, which included the Alliance for Children's Rights and the Center for Law and Justice. Now she works with the EEOC, Betzedek, and the Harriet Bahai Center for Family Law and participates in Southwestern Law School's Immigration Law Clinic and the Guardianship Clinic with Public Counsel. Ryan Gray, Loyola Law School. Ryan hopes to practice criminal justice. Her undergraduate major at USC was psychology with a minor in forensics and criminality. Currently, she is co-president of the Loyola Law School chapter of the National Lawyers Guild, community outreach coordinator of the Black Law Students Association, and is a member of the Women Lawyers Association of Los Angeles, and Langston Bar Association. Ryan served an externship at the County Public Defender's Office, was law clerk at the Inner City Law Center, a law firm legal assistant, a volunteer lead tutor at the Youth Policy Institute, California Family Source Center, and much more. Jessie Martin, UCLA School of Law. Jessie's experience as a child whose family relied on public support led to her interest in healthcare reform and Medicaid. As an undergrad at UC Berkeley, she structured her own major in health policy and bioethics with a minor in public policy. She now is obtaining a joint degree in law and a master's in public policy with a concentration in health policy, having selected UCLA Law School because it has 2 top health law professors and a health law society. She adds to this work with Covered California and the Henry Kaiser Family Foundation. She is dedicated to making an impact on health policy. Lisette Reynoso, UCLA School of Law. The daughter of Mexican immigrants who left school in the 6th grade, Lisa has a great commitment to her community, Spanish-speaking Los Angeles. After graduating magna cum laude from UCLA and learning about postgraduate programs such as law school, she became involved in the UCLA Law Fellows Program, which seeks to bring underrepresented students to the legal profession. She now mentors undergraduates in that program. She has devoted her efforts to service at the Downtown Labor Center, Legal Aid Foundation, and the La Raza Law Students Association. Thank you.
I don't know where we find such extraordinary gifted and deserving young people. It's a remarkable event that occurs every year at this time. And we have a very hard-working scholarship committee, of course. On behalf of the Beverly Hills Bar Association and Foundation, I have the great honor to present a special recognition award in a few minutes to former Associate Justice Joyce Kennard. She has had an inspirational career and outstanding leadership in promoting justice during her term on the California Supreme Court. She retired from the court on April 5th after 25 years of distinguished service, making her tenure the longest to date. Her family originally migrated from Indonesia. She graduated from the USC Gold School of Law and at the same time received a master's in public administration from the USC's Public Administration School. She has received numerous honorary Juris Doctorate degrees, and if you go to her listing on the California Supreme Court page, it goes on and on and on, and they're all just and deserving. Justice Kennard was appointed to the California Supreme Court by Governor Deukmejian in 1989 and was elected in 1990, re-elected to full terms in 94 and 2006. She served as chair of the California Judicial Council's Appellate Advisory Committee and the California Supreme Court and Courts of Appeal. She was among the 4-3 majority overturning the state same-sex ban on marriage, in-ray marriage cases, and you know how our association feels about that particular issue. She's been described as unpredictable, a humanist. She's remarkable. Her intellect is outstanding. She has judicial flair. She is a superstar. Her dissents are absolutely remarkable, and a respected jurist, Doris Cordell, indicated that maybe not right now and maybe not next year, but down the road, her dissents will become the law. She is a purist, and she's always sort of in favor of the underdog. She's my friend, too. And we're so lucky to get her because she's turned the NPR down. She's turned down everybody. So I started asking her to do this 6 years ago when I joined the ladder. Justice Kennard.
Diane, thank you so very, very much for your exceptionally kind words. And to the Beverly Hills Bar, 1,000 thanks for giving me this special recognition. Any success I achieved, I owe to America. That success could have happened only in America. This young nation is inhabited by people who, like me and some of you, came from different lands, bringing with them different customs, different cultures, and different traditions. We and those preceding us came in search of a better life, a better future. Some came to be free from oppression, whatever the dream. The fervent hope was to have that dream realized in this land of opportunity, this land of liberty. Liberty to me means freedom of thought, freedom of religion, and freedom to associate with whom one pleases. The great individual freedoms that this country has are envied by many in the world. These are the freedoms that since the birth of this nation have drawn people from lands near and far. Without freedom of speech, without freedom of religion, without freedom of association, there can be no true liberty. As a British writer observed in an article he wrote shortly after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks on the Pentagon and the New York World Trade Center, the United States remains a beacon of hope for the world's poor and dispossessed, and for all those who believe in freedom of thought. The United States is the anchor of what we call the free world. And while the free world is an imperfect world, it is far better than anything else on offer, as millions of migrants attempting to join America from other parts of the globe will testify. I am one of those migrants. I never felt that America owed me anything. I feel indebted to this country simply for letting me in. America gave me a chance to succeed. America became my country by choice when I became a citizen just 6 years after coming to this country. Growing up in an internment camp during World War II on the Indonesian island of Java, later living in a Quonset hut in what was then known as Dutch New Guinea, I had only the most rudimentary of an education, which ended at age 14 because there was no more schooling to be had anywhere for me, not in any town in New Guinea. Back then, I never dreamed that one day I would be lucky enough to live in America. Once in America, my hope was to get a job, any job. I never thought that one day I would be a lawyer. I never thought that one day I would be a judge. And I never thought that one day I would sit on the highest court of California, being only the second woman justice in the court's history. The first woman justice was Chief Justice Rose Byrd. I immigrated to America in 1961 and was lucky enough to get a job as a secretary with an insurance company in downtown Los Angeles. The pay was $280 a month. Nearly 7 years later, the company allowed me a 2-month unpaid leave of absence to go to Holland, where my mother was dying of lung cancer. After my return to Los Angeles, I learned that my mother had left me $5,000. My mother was a woman of little means, working very hard at simple jobs, such as a typist and a peeler of onions in a Chinese restaurant. The bequest enabled me to go after my dream of a college education. I left my full-time job with the insurance company. I was then, I think, in my late 20s. And because I didn't have anyone to fall back on financially, I had no choice but to do 4 years of college work in 3, while working a minimum of 20 hours a week at a job. America taught me that the boundaries of achievement are set largely by the individual. America taught me to dream the impossible dream. America gave me a chance to succeed against all odds. For that, I will always be grateful. I'm also grateful for living in this great democracy. Some 3 weeks ago, I read an article in the New Yorker magazine where a journalist living in Ukraine made certain comments to the American interviewer. after the Ukrainian journalist expressed his concern about an imminent invasion by Russia, the journalist said, "Our police are nothing. Our army is nothing. Our courts are nothing. But if Russia crosses the border, we'll fight. Even with a bad army, we'll fight." The journalist went on to say, "You in the West, you get your democracy just like you get your morning coffee and your morning paper. It's like water coming out of the tap. You don't have to think about it. It's going to come every day. You never had to fight for democracy, not in your lifetimes. We have to fight for it right now. We're at the front of democracy, literally at the front, where people die." Those words were a jolting reminder to me of how we tend to take for granted our democratic way of life, one that you and I inherited from those who founded this nation and gave us our Constitution, which guarantees us our great individual freedoms, leaving us free to pursue our dreams for a better tomorrow. Don't give up on dreams. In the words of the poet Langston Hughes, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. To all of you, a fond farewell.
I know that you join me in thanking Justice Kennard for inspiring remarks, but she's always been a remarkable and inspiring individual, and we are so fortunate that you came to talk with us this afternoon. Fred, would you like to step up here and introduce the chief?
I have the great honor to introduce our Chief Justice, Tani Kantil Sakaoyi. Chief Justice Sakaoyi was sworn into office in January of 2011 after being elected by an overwhelming majority in November of 2010. Since then, she has traveled throughout the state to promote the work of the California Supreme Court. She chairs the Judicial Council of California and the Commission of Judicial Appointments. The Chief Justice today will present extended remarks on the current state of the judiciary. I have great honor to present a very, very powerful, wonderful woman, who's our Chief Justice, Justice Tana Cantil-Sakaoyu. Sorry.
Thank you, please. Thank you. Thank you. Please. Thank you. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, and what a pleasure it is to be here, fourth consecutive year with the Beverly Hills Bar Association. I look out into this audience and I see friends, I see fellow travelers, I see leaders in the trenches, and it feels like a family of home, actually, seeing all of you here. I thank Fred for his introduction. We were joking earlier that Fred is either a rose among thorns on this side of the dais, or a rose among thorns, or a thorn among roses. We'll let all of you be the judge of that. Keep it to yourself. I will also say, listening to my colleague, who I will always think of my colleague, Justice Joyce Kennard, she is, as you have just seen, a small bit of a remarkable, extraordinary woman. She is, to all who come into her universe, we all consider her friend, mentor, and role model. And we miss her on the bench. And I will tell you something, that she is retired since April, but she has spent her retirement working on 11 opinions. And it took at least 24 pro tem justices to do her work in the month of May. So I suggest another round of applause for Justice Joyce Kennard. Congratulations also to our youthful award recipients today from the Beverly Hills Bar Association. You can see you're joining an amazing group of professionals in a branch dedicated to preserving the dreams of all, because it is only through the protection of civil rights and enforcing rights that those dreams are even possible in America. So congratulations to you as well. It is with great pleasure that I also introduce really remarkable people whom you know and read about, and that is my fellow justices on the Supreme Court. And I'll start in order of seniority, and starting with the retirement of Justice Joyce Kennard, I introduce to you people you know very well. First, Justice Marvin Baxter. Next, Justice Catherine Werdegar. Next, Justice Ming Chin. Next, Justice Carol Corrigan. And I'm not sure that he's here yet, but Justice Goodwin Liu, in his absence. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not introduce to you many that you already know if you've had any contact with the California Supreme Court, and that is our hardworking administrator, clerk of the court, Frank McGuire. Where are you, Frank? Well, congratulations to the Beverly Hills Bar Association on the 60th anniversary of this Supreme Court luncheon. I like to point out that in 60 years, much has changed. The first is that this started, I believe, with Chief Justice Phil Gibson, and at that time, the Supreme Court was in the struggle to obtain a supply of research attorneys. 60 years ago, because this is in the land of media entertainment, I believe 60 years ago, Bill Haley introduced the song Rock Around the Clock. For those of you with a different sort of musical taste, 60 years ago, Elvis Presley introduced his first song, That Things Are All Right. Also, 60 years ago, in media, NBC broadcast the first color transmission of an event, the Tournament of Roses Parade, coast to coast. 60 years ago, and I'm gratified that we have Councilmember William Bryan here today, the grand descendant of Earl Warren. 60 years this year, we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education, and I need not explain the importance of that landmark decision to all of you. So 60 years ago, you saw what the High Court was doing, you saw what media was doing, you saw what was happening across the board. Fast forward 60 years and where are we? Well, music taste may have changed somewhat. I'd also point out that technology has advanced. I'd also point out that the justice system, particularly the California courts, are in a different kind of struggle, a struggle to protect civil rights, to keep dreams alive, a struggle to resolve disputes, a struggle to make sure that rights go changed and that wrongs do not go unchallenged. And that is, as you know, what's happening with the current state of the judiciary. But I point out that even though 60 years have passed and we're locked in a different kind of struggle, the reason that we in the judicial branch remain stalwart is because, in the words of Alexander Hamilton, frankly, as you know, laws are a dead letter without the courts to expound and define their meaning. And so what is the current state of the judiciary in California today? This is a judicial branch, the largest in the country, largest law trained in the world, serves 38 million Californians of the most diverse population in the nation, I would say in the world. We still receive 1 penny on every general fund dollar. Over the last 5 years, over $1 billion was taken from the judicial branch, resulting in massive layoffs, closed courthouses, over 50 closed courthouses, hundreds of closed courtrooms that aren't counting those closed courthouses. But also in the last 2 years, we've seen I think, revitalization. When there has been money in the state, the budget has shown an incremental increase in the money allotted to the judicial branch. This fiscal year for 13-14, we saw an additional $60 million. Currently, in the governor's most recent May revision of his budget, we've seen a total of $160 million added to the baseline budget for permanent spending to the branch. Also, we are seeing, thanks to you, frankly, thanks to your leadership with Bench Bar, your speaking with your legislators, your work at the Capitol through your coalitions and through your associations, we've seen that the Assembly and the Senate are united in at least $300 million more to the judicial branch in order to preserve operations. And so I think there's much room for optimism in terms of restoration of the branch. I would call it careful restoration of the branch as California comes back from what's known as the Great Recession. And so what I bring to you today, I think, is if you were to think about the judicial branch and public access and the practice of law in California in the branch, the word I leave with you is blue. And I say blue for several reasons. And first, because if you listen to the Assembly subcommittee hearing where we brought people who described the challenge they're facing in the court system, you heard that some folks drive 3.5 hours one way just to file their court case, which means they're going to have to drive another 3.5 hours to actually resolve the case every day that that case is heard in court. You also may have heard about people who sleep in their cars in order to obtain a restraining order to be first in line the next day. So basically they're hiding until they can go home where they believe it's safe. You've also heard about people who are waiting 2 years to resolve matters in their children's lives. 2 years in a child's life is an eternity of growth. And yet we know that courts without staff, without adequate funding, are working as hard as they can. I know my colleagues here from the trial courts, my colleagues from the courts of appeal, are doing twice as much work with fewer staff, but continuing to try to do the best they can for public service. And so I say blue because all of us who hear these stories, no matter how long we've been in the practice of law or in judging or related to the practice of law, all of those stories touch our hearts in a way that we say, how can this be happening in California? How can this be happening today in California? How can we allow this to happen? And thankfully, you've all stood up and said, no, it can't happen. And you've lent your voice to the advocacy for restoration of the branch so that funding comes to increase access for people who desperately need justice to preserve not only their dreams, but their livelihood and what they expect as the right to their family. So on the bright side, the last 2 years where there have been funds, as I've said, we've seen an incremental increase. So the second reason I use the word blue is because this year I promulgated a concise financial document called a blueprint for a fully funded judicial branch in 3 years. It is a blueprint, a document you can find on our website that accounts for all of the changes and needs of the courts in terms of dependency counsel, in terms of the need for judges, in terms of the need for justices, in terms of the need for additional operational funds to trial courts based on case filings. I don't think you can get more logical than that. This is what trial courts need based on the cases that are filed, the number and complexity in their courts. Those numbers don't lie. That's what the courts need, and there are 2 numbers of import. The first is, in the first year of a fully funded branch, over a 3-year period, the judicial branch would need $612 million. That's what we would need. However, there's another number, $266 million that we need simply to maintain the status quo. So the status quo is over 50 courthouses closed, over 200 courtrooms closed, delays of 3.5 hours to get to court, delays of years for a case to come to litigation. We also know the long lines, the closed windows, etc. Just to maintain that substandard of justice, it'll take $266 million. The Legislative Analyst's Office, the LAO, who does the numbers independent of the governor's office, the legislative office, and the judicial branch, agrees with that number, agrees that we need $266 million more to the baseline budget to maintain where we are today. The governor's budget came in at $160 million. We've been involved in intense lobbying. As we speak today, the conference committee, that is the budget committee of the legislature, that is the Assembly and the Senate, are debating the judicial branch and $300 million as the alternative to the governor's May revise of $160 million. So right now, and especially tomorrow, we are blanketing the Capitol with advocacy to maintain the $300 million to get us to the $266 million that we desperately need in order to keep the status quo. According to the blueprint, failure to maintain 266 as a baseline addition would mean more cuts, which I find unconscionable to people and public access in California. So the other way I use blue is because we've received incremental amounts of money every year from this governor and this legislature. We are at a place where finally, for the first time, the legislature is really advocating for additional money according to the blueprint. So of course, not wasting any time, I believe this is the opportunity for California's judiciary, with the help of the lawyers, to look at efficiencies and ways that we are able to improve the delivery of justice to people in a 21st and 22nd century in California. And so I have selected I think the indomitable Carol Corrigan to lead this Blue Ribbon Commission. I see you smiling, Carol. Thank you, thank you. To look at how we can go forward with efficiencies, knowing our core devotion to public access and protecting civil rights, and making sure that we examine aggressively all manners that we can improve in a way that we can provide access in California. And as you know, being a lawyer, being a judge, being a professor, being a dean, I don't expect unanimity, but I expect that we will fully discuss and flesh out all the recommendations so that we can seek to move California's judiciary forward, so that we can continue to protect civil rights in a time of ever-shrinking budget, so that we may never again experience the last 5 years. So in closing, I share with you that the remarks of Justice Kennard about dreams and protecting our democracy only exist with 3 fully functioning branches of government. And when one is diminished, when one is marginalized, then we fail to fulfill that check and balance and that dream for all. And so I look forward to seeing you in the halls of the Capitol and at the conventions and at the bar meetings, because you have lent your voice, and the judiciary and public access is in a far different place today than we were 4 years ago when I first became chief.
And as I close with the words, as you all well know, we the people of the United States, in order to perform a more perfect union, establish justice. So now let's maintain it. Thank you.
I know that you all join me in thanking the chief for those inspiring comments and remarks, and for the fact that they come down here every year to do this luncheon with us. I want to thank the entire Supreme Court for joining us yet once again this year, and all of our judicial officers in the audience. And I want to invite you all to come back next year, because we're going to do this again. And it's always one of the best highlights of the entire year. Thank you so much for attending.